So you're a highly acclaimed journalist, and you also won several awards for your work. And you also write adventure stories and thrillers in which you offer alternative interpretations of documents and facts. So in a way you engage in a kind of investigative journalism. How did you come upon the topics of art history and religious history you write about?
Well, what I basically do as a novelist is I try to tell interesting stories in an interesting way. I try to connect a fictional story, something that came up from my mind, which is the plot, and a real mystery. Whereas many other writers, they invent a mystery, I come up with a real mystery, and I present that mystery to readers. For example, my last novel, The Last Secret, it's about Jesus. The information that I provide in the book is the historical information and the religious information is a true information that it is known in universities by theologians. However, the general public is not aware of that information. So what I do, I use a fictional plot, and I bring that information from the close circle of universities to the general public, and it becomes a good story. And people, while they read a story that entertains them, they also learn something about the world, about themselves, about the universe, about the past, and it offers them leads so that they, if they want, they can research furthermore.
So you have to educate people, actually.
Yeah, well, my point is I don't try actually to educate people, though that is the end result of the effort. What I try to do is to tell a good story in an interesting way. But of course, if you learn something about it, then it's great, I guess.
Looking through your novels, we might consider that statement, an author who is afraid cannot be a real author, your Ars Poetica. What drives you to those revolting, unsettling themes you write about?
I like very much to take on a subject where everybody's sure about something and show people that the politically correct truth is actually not true. Another example, I wrote the Wrath of God. It's about Islam. We all have this idea that Islam is a peaceful religion, but we are never told that 60% of the Quran is related to war. So I sort of deconstruct this politically correct idea, and I say things that are probably inconvenient, but true. And I demonstrate that information. So that is what I strive to do.
Are you considering yourself as a brave author?
No, it's true that when you are a novelist or an artist, not only a novelist, a painter, a musician, whatever, you have to be free. If you are not free, first, your creativity does not exist. And second, you do not fulfill your role as an artist to society. What artists do, they show the way, And if I am afraid of writing about something, I will not fulfill my role. I'm sure if artists defeated their own fears and in the 30s wrote about what Nazism is all about, really, if they went beyond the politically correct things that you would say about Nazism. In those days, in the 30s, if you read the books then, they would say, well, it's Mr. Hitler is a bit harsh man, but he's a fair man. People were writing this stuff, and they were not brave enough or lucid enough to see what was the truth. And so that is the role of the artist. He goes beyond the politically correct things and expose truth as it is. And that's what I try to do. And to do that, you have to be free. You have to be able to face the powers that exist, economical powers, political powers, religious powers, social powers. You have to go to defeat your own fear so you can expose truth, because truth will free us all.
While doing research for your books, you spend a lot of time seeking out and analyzing primary sources and documents and evaluating facts, and you also lay great emphasis on authenticity and accuracy. How difficult is to use this mass of information in a fictional, plot-driven, entertaining novel in a way that the book doesn't come a dull, technical treatise or a loose-knit, incoherent and conventional adventure story either?
Yeah, well, sometimes I may get enthusiastic about the subject, and I have to always bear in mind how the reader is reading the book. And also, what I think is more important, people will enjoy the details. The thing about it is that you have to write it in an interesting way. It's like telling a joke. You have someone who tells a joke, and it's very funny. The other person tells a joke, and it's the same joke, but it's not funny. It's not only what you say, it's the way you say it, you see? And the novel is about that too, you know. You can tackle a subject which everyone will say, oh, this is a dry subject, nobody will be interested. And you make it interesting, and people will love it because of the way you write it. So basically the trick is to try to find a way to turn something into something very interesting.
And you managed, as you see. Your protagonist, Tomás Noronha, is a virtuous character, yet he is prone to hesitation. His mind is very logical, but he is not infallible. His moral standing is unquestionable, but he is easily tempted by flattery. How much are these attitudes and characteristics feature related to your personality?
Well, Tomás has two things which are mine. First, he has the same age as I have. I did that because it's easier to calculate his age. The second thing is he teaches at the same university where I teach in Lisbon. So these things are mine. The rest, it's not mine. He is a creation of me. However, we all know that we put always a little bit of ourselves in all characters we create. Either what we are, or what we would like to be, or unconscious desires, whatever. I have no control on that, you know. But it is interesting that when I'm writing the novels with Tomás, I discover him a little bit in each novel. In each novel I come to know him a little bit better, and I guess the reader does so. If by doing that I'm seeing a mirror of myself, I don't know. Maybe, you know, but it is unconscious if that is the case.
In your novel of 2005, Codex 632, you explore Christopher Columbus's real background and the questionable date of the discovery of America. Were you attacked by historians or other societies after the publication of this novel? Or did your novel inspire any change of the approach of the official researchers?
It's an interesting question. Well, what I did when I wrote that novel, I went in my university, it has a very good history department. Actually, it's the top history department in the country. And I spoke with the professor in charge of the discoveries period. And I said to him, I would like you to review my book, just to say if something is incorrect. But what I'm saying there is that Columbus was not a Genovese, he was actually a Portuguese Jew. And he said, no, that is nonsense. It's absolutely rubbish. It's not true. He was Genovese. But then I said, okay, I just want you to have an open mind about this. And this is the top historian in the country on discoveries. So he said, okay, I'll have an open mind. I'll read your book. He read the book and he called me for a meeting and said, you know, I read your book, I checked the facts. Many of the facts, of course, I knew, but I hadn't think about them in the same way. And you know what? I've changed my opinion. I think he could not be a Genovese. It's impossible. For the reasons that you explain. I've checked all this. It is true. And it is interesting that then I went for a television show where there was a debate with an historian with the official version. And we started dialoguing. This is a very, very much watched video in YouTube. And suddenly I was putting into him questions that he had no answer because they were totally absurd. And nowadays there is a trend because of that book to accept that what we know officially, it's actually probably not true. What happens is that historians, they hate. It's like the air. Air hates vacuum. So he has to fill the vacuum. So when there is ignorance about something, you come up with a theory, and that theory becomes the truth, the official truth. You see, it's a theory that he was a Genovese. And suddenly new facts come up, and it's very difficult to replace that theory with a stronger theory. But it can be done, and that way is being done nowadays in historian universities.
Your novel God's Formula is centered on a formula hidden in a poem by Albert Einstein. Where did this idea come from, and how difficult was it for you to get deeply involved in a storyline which has required a great deal of knowledge about natural and formal sciences?
Well, I enjoy science because I think that science is a way to unlock the mysteries of our existence. Why the deepest philosophical questions are not nowadays dealt by philosophers. They are dealt by scientists in Geneva, in the CERN. They look at what is the stuff of reality. So I think science is something passionate, and I always read scientific stuff. That book was born out of my idea of trying to explain what does science know about God. Well, I was in a beach in Brazil, and I was watching this Swedish boy was reading a book called The God Particle, and I asked him, "What is this, the God particle?" So it's the Higgs boson, which was discovered last year in Geneva, and I thought, wow, it would be interesting to write a book about what science knows about God. So that was the starting point, and then I started reading a lot of scientific books, and I found out that a lot had been discovered by scientists, that they were uncomfortable about some of their discoveries. They were not publicizing these discoveries, and they were, again, discoveries that were closed in universities, not known by the general public. And I decided to bring that information to the public. That's what happened.
You haven't been afraid that the public won't really understand it, or won't, because it's much more serious than normally like entertaining books and thrillers.
Yeah, that's why in a book what I do first, my reader has to be educated, Second, if you read the first part of the book, I explain the basics of science, atoms and all that stuff, which is important, the Big Bang, to understand the discoveries. And so you find in a book the big revelations, which are true. It's true information. It didn't come out from my mind. They came out in the end, and I guess people understand them. Yes, actually, the book has been in the top 10 charters of many countries. So it means that people enjoyed the book and understand because if they did not understand, they wouldn't buy it at all.
I understood it, so yeah. It worked. It's just that you didn't have the fear. The seventh seal deals with the impending disaster caused by climate change. Do you personally believe in global warming, or did you come up on any authentic data during your research which proved that it might well be only a conspiracy theory?
No, it's not conspiracy theory. There is actual information that shows that temperature is rising. And if you see the rise of temperature, it goes along the curve of the carbon dioxide rise in the atmosphere, which is related to human activity. So it's not actually. I don't think it's a theory anymore. It's the scientific community is in agreement about that, with the exception of the scientists who are sponsored by the oil industry. All the others, just basically say what's going on, and it's a real challenge. It's not for us actually, but the big impact will come for our grandchildren. What we are, however, facing, it's interesting that the book deals with global warming, but also with the problem of the end of oil. When I wrote that book in 2000, I published it in Portugal in 2007, and I was predicting, oil very soon is going to reach and cross the three-digit limit, which was $100, because it's scarce now. It's becoming scarce, and we are consuming more, and there is no production. There is no enough production of oil to sustain the demand. And 2 months after I published the book, the price of oil started to rise and crossed the $100 mark. So I was called into Portuguese Parliament to explain what was going on with oil, because they read the book and they were shocked. Of course, when it was published in Hungary, these events had already taken place. But in Portugal, I was, which was the first country that read the book, these events had not taken place yet. So it became disturbing, the fact that the events were following what the book was saying that would happen.
One of the greatest virtues of your book, The Wrath of God, is that it depicts Islam objectively without the usual stereotypes. During your research of this book, to what extent could you identify with the teachings, aims and moral concepts of this religion?
What I try to do with the Wrath of God, I have a kid, an Egyptian kid, and he goes to school, and he has a moderate teacher that teaches Islam in a moderate way. And then this teacher is replaced by another teacher, and this is a hardline teacher, and says, well, did your previous professor tell you, your teacher told you that that Islam is all love and stuff? Well, let's read what's actually written in the Quran. And what I was trying to do was to show how the mind frame of a radical forms, because this boy will become an Al-Qaeda operative later on. In doing that, I wasn't judging, but I'm sure that a lot of people that were reading the book were very shocked at the way these guys look at their own religion, That, for example, I realized one very interesting thing, which is we, in Europe, are either Christians or we don't pay attention to religion. This is the main religion. Of course, there are other religions, Muslims and Jews and whatever, but mainly it's Christian. But even people who are not Christian, they are culturally Christian, even if they do not know it. Why do I say that? I remember I was watching the demonstrations in 2003 when America attacked Iraq, the leftist groups in Lisbon, and they were saying, violence is not a solution. Now, this is a deep Christian thought, because Jesus said, if someone hits you on one cheek, show the other cheek. Jesus said, it is written, love your neighbor, but I tell you, love your enemy too. You see? So this is a deep Christian thought, and a lot of people, Europeans who are not religious, who do not pay attention to religion, they have these ideas embedded in their mind frame, and they think they are universal. They are not. As I said, the Quran, 60% of the Quran is about war. For Muslims, violence sometimes is the answer, and being violent and performing war is your religious duty for the reasons that I explain in the book. Now, this is very strange for a Christian. Every Christian who resorts to violence, and we know that there is a lot of violence in the Christian history, is actually against the teachings of Jesus. No, because he said, love your enemy. It's no way. But sometimes a Muslim that refuses to go into war is against the teachings of his own prophet, because Muhammad said, in these situations, you have to go to war. You have, for example, the Islamic project, which I explain in the book, is to spread Islam around the world. And you do it peacefully, if possible, and violently, if necessary. That is the teaching of Muhammad. So a lot of things that we see going on is actually part of that plan that Muhammad laid out in the 7th century. And it is very interesting to see this shock of mind frames because of religious values.
In your novel in 2011, The Last Secret, which just came out in Hungarian, you meticulously go through the New Testament and the life of Jesus, and you come up with a quotation which proved the mistakes, misspellings, and deliberate frauds in the text. The way Jesus' written life story is refuted in this novel seems absolutely logical. To what extent did you use elaborate speculations to be able to write this story?
What was done in that book? You know, historians have a process to understand what's going on in history. For example, let us suppose that you are an historian today, and you want to understand what was going on in 1956 when the Soviets got into Hungary. So you read a newspaper then, and the newspaper, which is controlled by the Soviets, will say, you know, two reactionary elements justice was made on them today on Moscow Square. Now, you are an historian. Are you going to say, well, they did justice on two reactionary elements? No, you know that they mean that they've killed two Hungarian nationalists, you see? Because you do not accept the text as it is. You have to understand the motivation of the one and the ideology of the one who wrote the text and the intention. And so when you understand this, then you decode and you translate that into things that we understand. Well, okay, it was two nationalists that were killed. That was it. It's the same with the historical analysis of the Christian texts. You have to understand the ideology, the intentions behind the writing of these texts, so that you can translate them into something that is understandable today. So when you do that, you realize that the mythological picture that was created was actually not true. It is actually not true. A lot of Christians do not know this, but not one of the writers of the New Testament have met Jesus personally. They wrote from hearsay, you know. And Matthews did not write the Gospel of Matthews. Luke did not write the Gospel of Luke. John did not write the Gospel of John. Mark probably did not write the Gospel of Mark, though that might be in dispute. It's the only thing. So a lot of information that we have to understand why is that and what are the intentions and the objectives of this writing. And by applying the historical method, you can come up with a different picture of Jesus than the one it is mythically portrayed by the church.
Are you a believer? How much and in what ways did the biblical criticism you did in The Last Secret change your attitude towards the Catholicism?
Well, first, I'm not a religious person. I think religion is fascinating, but I believe that we are able to dialogue with God, because I believe there is a God, but the God that I think exists is not the God that is depicted in the Bible or in the Quran. We imagine God as being an old man with a big bird that looks at our world and listens to our prayers. This God has not been found. However, if you look at an intelligent, intentional entity, then yeah, why not? Let's suppose I ask God now, God, why is it that when I stand up, I don't float in the air? He's not answering. He's not answering. So what do? I pick up my pen and I do this. Okay, the pen is here and I drop it. What I did was I asked the question. The pen was, when I lay my fingers out, this is a question. And the pen falling is the answer. So I have to interpret the answer. You see? So science is actually experiments. Experiments are questions. The results of experiments are answers. And by studying these results, we understand the answers that God is giving us, because God is nature. Everything is God. It's like our body. Is this hair me? Well, it's a part of me. My neurons are me. My cells in the hand are. It's every. We are a whole. We are not. I'm not just this part of my body. Everything is me. It's the same with the universe. Everything is one. And we live under the illusion that everything is different, and it is not. So this is the God I believe, that the God which science discovers and with whom science can talk.
And did your
Attitude change?
Yeah.
No, when I wrote that book, no. As I said before, me and like every other European, I am at least a cultural Christian. I share values which I thought were universal, and I realize now they are Christian values, like you shall not be violent and that kind of stuff. That's part of our cultural heritage. In that sense, I'm Christian, but not in the sense that I go to church or I believe that Jesus was God. No, this is I've never believed it, and I don't know.
I think it's wise that Last Secret doesn't dig deep into the moral aspects of cloning, since this is not the main theme of the novel. Still, I'd be curious to know your views about this. If it can safely be done both technologically and medically, what's your opinion about the positive potentials lying in cloning?
Well, health, I guess. You can clone and change stuff, Cloning, as I explained in the book, or should I say, genetic manipulation, has been around for a long time. In agriculture, for example, what farmers do is that they manipulate genetically stuff. They cross dogs as we know them. They did not exist. They are a result of genetic manipulation. There were wolves before. Now you have these little puppies and stuff. They did not exist naturally. So we created them. And we think they are natural. They are not. Most of the groceries that we eat, that we buy in a supermarket and we eat, are a result of 1,000 years of genetic manipulation by farmers. Usually, in the original state, these groceries did not exist. What existed was something that was very unpleasant to the taste. So the farmers started crossing, and you see what I mean. So I think that if cloning becomes something safe, one day it will be commonplace. There will be a debate. There will be people resisting and stuff. But in 1,000 years, nobody will care. The same way now we don't care that 1,000 years ago they started cloning vegetables and crossing and manipulating vegetables. So we may have a discussion for one generation, but the life of humanity extends beyond much more than one generation.
Your latest novel, The Devil's Hand, deals with the most pressing question of our times: the financial crisis it causes, and the ones who are responsible for it. Why did you abandon the realms of art history and religious history for the sake of international politics and economics?
Because I like to write about different things. I'm not a writer on religion. It's a subject, but it's not the only subject. In Codex, it was about the history of the discoveries and Christopher Columbus. It was hardly a religious issue. Or the Seventh Seal was about global warming or oil. So I change subjects. What I try to do is I write books about something where I have something to say. Okay, no matter what is the subject, and something that is revealing. So what I did in the Hand of the Devil was to explain the crisis in such a way that even the government understands what's going on. Even the Prime Minister, who usually they are not very clever, or they are clever but not intelligent. Anyway, so that's what I was trying to do with the Hand of the Devil, and the conclusion that we have, it bothers me to see how politicians manipulate people. They play on your fears, they play on your desires, and they promise things that they cannot deliver, and they keep lying. And I thought, I'm going to write a book where the reader, after he reads the book, he will not allow himself to be deceived by politicians anymore, because he knows where he stands. He knows what lays ahead. For example, there is a myth now that it is the financial crisis who created it. This is a myth. This is not true. In one sense, it is true. I mean, let us imagine a big truck running at 100 kilometers per hour in this street, okay? It goes along the street at 100, so it's a very, very heavy truck. What happens? Because it's so quick and it's so heavy, the houses, there are 200 houses in the street, they will shake, okay? 20 of these houses will fall down, and 180 will remain erect, okay? They will shake and remain erect. So why did the houses fall down? Because of the truck? No. The truck was what clinched the event. But there were actually structural problems in the houses. And what are these structural problems? Okay, it's the West being deindustrialized. Industries are moving to Asia. This is a serious problem. It was hidden, you see, because the countries that fell down, they were being deindustrialized and they were not aware of this. Or there were some newspaper reports, but nobody really paid much attention. So that's why the structure was not solid. They invested wrongly in the economy. They indebted themselves, so this is a debt crisis too. And also the euro has structural flaws, which when everything is going well, they don't show. But when something goes wrong, these flaws suddenly become obvious. You see what I mean? So to say that it is the fault of the financial crisis, no, the financial crisis just exposed the rotten situation that existed. And that is why some countries fell down and other countries remain. China is going on, so it had no struggle. And the financial crisis hit China as well. Brazil is going on. So you see what I mean? Politicians, when they want to say that they have no responsibility on this, it's a good culprit. They'll blame the financial crisis, but they are not telling you the truth, because the real problem is you had rotten structures and you have to correct your imbalances at home.
Thank you very much.